Michael Vought has been teaching and chairing the theater program at Westminster for the past 2 decades. During that time, he has directed over 50 productions. He is from Hawaii, where the Vought family tries to spend a portion of each year. He and his wife, Nina, who chairs the dance program here at the college, consider the arts their vocation and find food their avocation. Hundreds of Westminster students have spent time in the Vaught's home preparing and enjoying good food. Their May-term classes are, in fact, held in their bounteous garden.
Thank you, Emma and Ryan. When I was invited to present at this event, the students asked me to speak on a specific topic. This is a word that I find can be unnecessarily divisive, and typically I prefer to use the term plant-based cuisine. It is less contentious and far more delicious sounding. Still, tonight I will stick with veganism precisely because it does stir controversy. For instance, if I ask you the question, do vegans have a belief system? What would you say? Yeah, how about vegetarians? Yeah, in fact, most of us think we know exactly what those beliefs are and are pretty quick either to defend or to take them apart, right? How about if you don't belong in either one of those camps? Do you have a belief system? If you eat the standard American diet, okay, a little of my bias might be showing through. But seriously, if you eat the standard American diet, do you have a codified system of belief around food? Now remember, dominant belief systems tend to be invisible, right? White male has a difficult time recognizing white privilege or male privilege until something comes along that stirs the pot a bit. Like, well, a few years back, the public discovered that horse meat was being served in school lunches. Boom. Immediately, a well-defined, non-negotiable belief system became evident, right? Cows, yes. Horses, no. Pigs and chickens, yeah, no problem. Cats and dogs, definitely not. The whys of a dominant system are seldom questioned. It's just the way it is. It's what we do, right? But if I ask you to think about it, do you think that cow flesh is really that different than horse flesh? Or for that matter, why don't we get our meat from the local humane society? Ooh, we euthanize 3 million pets a year, so lots of cultures find dog to be a delicacy. Why not eat local? Why not eat... See? So why not Labrador lunch meat? Exactly, point made. Because it violates a rigid, inviolable belief system, right? Ham sandwiches, no problem. Shepherd pie, problem. It isn't just the philosophic underpinnings of the system that are invisible. Actually, the inner workings of the system are nearly invisible as well. In America, we slaughter 27 million land animals for food every day. Where are they? Why don't we see them? I mean, sure, if you drive across country, you'll see some cows out in the field or a chicken coop off in the distance, but 10 billion a year? Why don't we see them? Well, for one thing, according to the Animal Enterprise Terrorism Act, if you film or photograph an animal agriculture facility and show it to the public, you can be prosecuted as a terrorist of the United States. Wonder who pushed that legislation through and why. The entire process and belief system are, in fact, so far below the radar that we don't even have a word for the dominant food culture. We have veganism, a word that encompasses the lifestyle and the belief system. We have vegetarianism, again, lifestyle and belief system. But when it comes to the way that most people in this room eat, we have omnivorism-ish. It's the word itself doesn't even permit, it refuses to acknowledge the existence of a belief system. This thinking comes from the work of Dr. Melanie Joy, who coined the term Carnism. I am convinced that if we examine the carnistic system, both philosophically and practically, that the vast majority of us would change the way we eat overnight, but we don't. In fact, we go to great lengths to avoid doing so. And they only gave me 10 minutes, so here we go. When my wife and I, my wonderful wife Nina, who's sitting here clicking the slides for us, you should know she's the real authority on this subject in the family, but tonight I get to be the voice. When we teach classes on plant-based cuisine, we often examine what we call the 5 pillars of veganism. If you come to our cooking demonstration tomorrow in HWAC, you'll find why taste tops the list. We love blowing people's minds with how delicious plant-based cuisine can be. But I gotta tell you, we have an unfair advantage. And that's because taste science tells us that taste is value-based. What that means is that if you believe something to be good, it actually physiologically tastes better to you. So in a day and age when so many of us feel guilty about what we eat, can you imagine what it would be like to know that with every bite, everything that you are putting into your mouth is good? Good for the planet, good for your fellow human beings, for the animals, for you, and for the activists out there. Imagine what it would be like to know that 3 times a day you can make a radical choice, a political statement, really a subversive act against the dominant culture, while also doing all of this. Suddenly that delicious, fresh, organic, yummy meal you're making tastes even better. Animal welfare. Worldwide, we slaughter 56 billion animals for food each year. Now notice that the screen went blank behind me. I debated whether I should show video clips of factory farms and processing plants and decided against it. I hear some sighs out there going, oh good. Why? Because you know, you've seen them. You all know what we are doing on factory farms is immoral. That is why it is hidden from us. That is why they make it so easy for us to pretend that their advertisements of happy cows and happy farms are true, but you know. I won't say it, but I will. I won't show it, but I will say it. That if we purchase animal flesh from a factory farm, we are not only supporting the abuse and death of billions of loving, lovable animals, but we are taking that flesh into ourselves to become who we are. If we consume dairy products from a factory farm, we are stealing the secretions of a grieving mother every single time. But you know this, so I will spend no more than those few harsh words on the subject of animal welfare. Your knowledge, if you let it, is enough to motivate change. Social justice. Well, we could talk about those that work in the slaughterhouse or on factory farms. We could talk about the poor health of millions that can only afford to eat cheap, highly subsidized, high profit margin foods. We could talk about the fact that 8 out of 10 starving children come from countries in which the grain is being fed to cattle for export to the West, which is painfully ironic considering the fact that just the grain fed to U.S. Livestock alone could feed 800 million people every year. It's pretty simple math. We grow enough food to feed the world. We simply don't because we prefer the taste of meat. It's really a question of land use. You can take a look. The world's population is growing by 228,000 people every single day. Perhaps it's time that we start to connect the dots between sustainability, animal agriculture, what we celebrate as delicious, and feeding the world starving. Nutrition. I'm only going to try to convince you of one nutritional fact tonight. We all know that you can support any nutritional bias under the sun with studies out there, right? Sometime Google the health benefits of Nutella and see what comes up. Just between you and I, that's what's in Nutella. I'm sorry to tell you this, but it's not a health food. In truth, the largest nutritional study ever done on the human race revealed a 94% correlation between the consumption of animal products and the onset of major disease. In truth, medical textbooks had to be rewritten when Dr. Dean Ornish conclusively proved that heart disease could indeed be reversed through a vegan diet. In truth, doctors like Neil Barnard are curing diabetes consistently. And these studies and many more are out there, but so are the naysayers in droves. So I'm not going to convince you of these kinds of things in my 2 minutes on nutrition. The only fact I really want you to walk out with is this one. All of the essential nutrients required in the human diet are made by plants and microorganisms, not by animals. Why is that so important? Because if we can meet all of our requirements by eating a vegan diet, and the American Dietetic Association and on, they all say we can, if that is true, then, given the moral imperatives associated with animal welfare, social justice, the environment, then we start to run out of excuses really quickly. I saved the environment for last because this is the one that hits closest to home for many of us. We watch the world around us being devastated, and we all know that feeling of helplessness, don't we? In fact, that's why depression has become such a serious problem amongst environmental studies students. You so want to make a difference, but you inevitably get to the point to where you start to question if anything you do really matters. Well, I've got some really, well, I guess I should say in a very twisted way, I have some really, really good news. Animal agriculture has been identified as the primary contributor to each of these environmental problems. Not industry, not transportation, not energy, animal agriculture. And that's not just me saying it, it's these guys. In fact, the United Nations Food and Agriculture Report makes it clear that there is nothing humans can do that will have as immediate or long-term effect on the planet as a move toward a plant-based diet. In a more recent report, they said it far more succinctly when they said a global shift toward a vegan diet is vital. Vital is their word. Vital to combat climate change. In fact, I think the exact words are that it is vital to combat world hunger and all of the worst effects of climate change. That word vital sounds to me like it means that if we don't do it, we're going to lose those battles. And guess what? That's really good news. You're wondering why, aren't you? Because that means that we don't have to sit and wait for big industry to grow a conscience or for governments to pass legislation. That means that the power is in our hands, in yours and mine, and the person seated on either side of you. Now, it also means that the flip side is true, that if we consider ourselves environmentalists and continue to eat the standard American diet, now you know why I called it sad, and you continue to eat the standard American diet, then we sacrifice a part of ourselves, that part that knows deep inside that what we do does matter. I know that there's some of you out there who are probably going, yeah, I know, but it can't matter. It doesn't really matter that much, does it? Well, try this one out. A person who follows a vegan diet produces the equivalent of 50% less carbon dioxide, uses 1/11 the oil, 1/13 the water, and 1/18 the land compared to a meat eater for their food. I think that sounds significant to me. So don't let anyone tell you, ever, that you can't make a difference, because you can. You can choose a radical, revolutionary act 3 times a day. I'm going to close with a quote from one of my favorite authors, Will Tuttle. Intelligence is the ability to make meaningful connections. Someone tell me, what could possibly be more meaningful than connecting what we put into our body, the very stuff that becomes us, with the well-being of the planet and its inhabitants? And doesn't an institution of higher learning that includes these in their learning goals have a responsibility to tackle head-on the hard questions around this issue? So come on, Westminster, I'm challenging you. I'm calling on you, personally and as an institution, to think and go big on this one. Thank you.